Hi all, Rick here. In order to terraform a planet, the first requirement is a fairly sensible one and bolstered by the Prime Directive of Starfleet and the Federation's non-interference policy. The planet, or planetoid, has to be absent of all existing lifeforms and have nothing that would be destroyed by conversion. Naturally, there are also any political considerations like territory and ownership of the planet, but I kind of feel that goes without saying. While the Federation has a lot of tech available, and can of course recreate an M-class environment in a contained space, the aim of terraforming is to limit the amount of tech being used on the day-to-day to create that environment. Gravity plating can simulate any amount of Gs to a limit, life support systems can replicate breathable air and set the temperature within a wide margin, but having these running at all time defies the point of a planet-bound settlement. So one factor to consider is the suitability of the planet and how easily it could be adapted. Mass, gravity, habitable zones, existing atmosphere, magnetosphere presence, and so on. Finding a planet with any of these criteria really reduced the work required to terraform a planet. Most humans can tolerate gravity between 0.55 to 1.4 Gs for prolonged periods without overly detrimental effects. But even then, some kind of supplementation with medical science might need to be made. Vulcans and Klingons, for example, frequently occupy lower gravity worlds than their homeworlds and do just fine, while Trill's gravity has one of the lowest in the Federation for an M-class planet. Atmospheric composition of the planet is not quite as important, as this one is one of the more adjustable things, but a good start is the potential for oxygen, and a lack of poisonous gases being produced in abundance by the planet's geological activity. There's no point running air purification if the planet is only going to crack open and spew forth methane and sulfur again. Humans can breathe a lot more mixtures than you may think, so long as oxygen is present. Oxygen-helium works, accompanied by a squeaky voice and all, and many of the noble gases are fine, though I'd skip radon. Even hydrogen is breathable when mixed with the correct amount of oxygen. Just don't light a match. What's more important is the pressure, as higher pressure atmospheres can turn even nitrogen and oxygen toxic, and greater concentrations of oxygen are breathable at lower pressures. So a planet that can support an atmospheric pressure closer to Earth's is more prized than a planet that has an existing oxygen content, if the pressure's wrong. Another consideration is the geological activity of the planet, and if it generates a natural protective barrier like Earth does, a magnetosphere. Active planets are more likely to have some form of protection from solar winds and radiation, but other sci-fi factors can come into consideration. The mass of the planet, its geological status, possibility to retain an aptly pressurized atmosphere are the most important factors and will aid immensely in the terraforming process. A suitable day-night cycle also helps, but again, not the totality of criteria. All this is evaluated by the Federation's Terraforming Command, and when a planet is given the go-ahead, the process starts, often with Starfleet support. A base of operations is established, and there is often a monitoring station in orbit, but with the ultimate goal being terrestrial in nature, it makes sense to literally have boots on the ground throughout the process. The exact nature of the following steps varies depending on the planet in question, but often adding water is the first step. On Mars, for example, this was accomplished with the use of a Verteron array, basically a precursor of tractor beam technology, to guide water-ice comets from the solar system's asteroid belt down onto the Martian surface. Other methods included the melting of any present ice on the planet, the simple but arduous task of importing it, or the liberal usage of industrial replicators. These were often concentrated into basins, and then microorganisms were introduced that could tolerate the environment and begin to produce substances like oxygen. Algae, lichen, and hardy, simple flora could be added over time, expanding the biomes to support more complex life and culminating in the production of a breathable atmosphere. This process would normally take millennia, but the addition of industrial replicators, continual monitoring, and the discovery of millions more specialised lifeforms across the explored space has vastly reduced this process to take only 30 years of constant effort. While this is ongoing, it may be accompanied by the establishing of habitation domes as colonisation continues. Eventually, you're left with an M-class world, tailor-made to support whatever humanoid life seeks to colonise it, and ready to accept any imported flora or fauna. The big one. The Genesis device. Plot MacGuffin of the second Star Trek film. The project began from the Taurus Metagenome Research Project. This was discovered from 2263 by the USS Constellation in the Taurus Reach, where a simple mould had such an abundance of DNA instructions it was taken in for study. The results showed that alongside its own DNA, it carried with it so much encoded biological data that decryptions are still running into the 24th century. Turns out it was an engineered lifeform that was to act as a library of knowledge for a long hibernating species, the Shaddai, to carry everything they would need to re-engineer their worlds. The complexity of this organic storage was the foundation for creating the Genesis Matrix. Now, the Genesis device utilises a protomatter core to create a radiation wave known as the Genesis wave. This wave acts to break down matter and recombine it into life-producing chains, then rapidly accelerated their growth. This was a runaway effect that would course across a planet's surface until the entire planet had been converted into a new matrix. It may involve some form of replicated technology with how it breaks down and reorganises matter. And it remains one of the most potent forms of terraforming that Star Trek's mythos has ever seen, but it is also one of the least used. This is because the protomatter that enables this miraculous event is also unstable and creates unpredictable results. It also has the dubious effect of consuming any matter to form its new matrix, including previous life that may have existed on the target planet, making it a potent weapon if misused. The wave, once activated, was also self-sustaining through any matter, meaning that only the vacuum of space could contain it, as it only lost energy when it lacked matter to convert. Believe it or not, the Genesis device was eventually declassified by Starfleet, probably because the Klingon Empire already knew of it, and being open about it may have served to alleviate concerns over its misuse. Maybe. The incident that resulted in the Genesis planet also warranted years of investigations and accusations, even amongst the Federation, that it was too easily weaponizable, and that had been Starfleet's goal. So that also likely played a role in declassifying it all. Either way, other powers, like the Ferengi, have also made their own versions of the devices. While on small-scale testing, it looks to be a success. There are some things that it cannot do, like altering a planet's mass, rotation, or core properties, though it can convert matter in another form into a new planet itself, suggesting that it contained blueprints for entire worlds, not just the life upon them. There are only 2 encountered planets that have been formed through a Genesis device that we know of, and each was created from the mass of a nebula or such rather than an existing planet. The aforementioned Genesis planet was formed from the USS Reliant and the Mutara Nebula. It did create and support life, but eventually collapsed and tore itself apart, with even the life upon it accelerating in evolution or aging. But hey, at least it revived Spock. The second planet was created from the matter carried within an ion storm in the Detrion system and was called Locarno. It has less gravity and was cooler than Earth, but also marked for observation as it appeared more stable than the Genesis planet, and if it remains in one piece, there are plans to utilise it. But as an unintended creation of such a device, the Federation is being careful. By the late 24th century, the Genesis project itself is still studied in great detail, as it yielded too many advancements to ignore, but besides the occasional testing of a new device, there's also been little progress in stabilising it to a functional degree on a large scale. So for now, although many new developments in traditional terraforming technology have been derived from it, like the works of Dr. Gideon Sayatic, the Genesis device remains an experimental tech only. Some totally terraformed Federation worlds included Caldos, Blue Horizon, and New Helena, while there are many more in partially terraformed states like Sol's own Mars and Venus. In these cases, the projects often reach the point of making the surface habitable, and then end there, as they remain easily supplyable and supported by tech and the nearby Federation. There are also many examples of partial terraforming in order to restore or introduce something to a planet to aid life there, but I'm not counting these, nor am I looking at non-Federation examples. Additionally, you can look at the numerous colonies that are still supported by atmospheric processes, or have gravity plating down in inhabited areas, weather control systems and such in order to make a habitable biome. But again, while technically acts of terraforming, I don't consider these true terraforming, as once the tech is removed, the planet would revert to its natural state. And there you have it, the process of terraforming in the Federation. I'm sure you see why most of the time Starfleet prefers to just find a nice M-class world to settle instead, because of the effort involved in forming a world from scratch is still a significant investment, and the only shortcut they have is still subject to a lot of scrutiny and red tape. But it's still an amazing prospect to adapt a world to suit our needs, as each species has evolved to a specific set of requirements. While biologically adaptable, if we could snap our fingers and create an oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, 24-hour day-night cycle, 71% surface water and standard 1G environment planet, yeah, we'd want it. No alien pathogens, and just the life that we introduced, a second Earth, to settle onto. Of course, this one has to last long enough for us to do that feat, so, let's be responsible custodians, yeah? Until the next one, thanks for watching, I've been Rick, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.